Of all the questions I get, or comments that I get on my videos, the one that seems to get the most comments tends to be about the lateral pelvic tilt. And I made a couple of them, and I did that for a reason, because I know there's a lot of people out there that have lateral pelvic tilts. And I know that, not because I see them all the time, but because years ago I wrote a blog post about lateral pelvic tilt, and after about 6 or 7 months, it started getting insane amounts of traffic. And it stayed that way. For quite some time, until last summer when Google decided to unceremoniously drop me, because apparently it decided that I am not an expert on the subject. And I knew that people were only going to get pretty bad information on lateral pelvic tilts, the whole stretching, strengthen type thing, that never seems to work long term. That's the important thing. Some things can work short term, but long term, they don't resolve anything, because if you believe me that we're working on a pattern, a neuro-brain-muscular pattern, which is called being stuck in right stance, so our weight is oriented to the right side, our pelvis is oriented to the right. We call it the left AIC pattern, where the pelvis on the left comes forward, the pelvis on the right, the hemipelvis, goes back. And I know a lot of people think they're the opposite, but you're just going to have to trust me that, just stay with me here, because I'm not going to go into it. I've already explained the situation. Pelvis oriented to the right, spine oriented to the right, and yes, there's research that shows you that the spine in each lumbar segment, or each vertebral segment of the spine, you'll see a lot more rightward rotation than the left. But remember, because there's a couple things to keep in mind. Humans have to stay straight, and they need to keep a horizontal line of sight. So all compensatory shifts of the body and all compensatory twists of the body, whether it's up and down or side to side, those, or forward and back, all of those are in order to stay straight. Orientation, we have to stay straight. Your brain is going to keep you straight like a homing beacon, straight. Horizontal line of sight, because living like this is not a good thing. So keep those two things in mind. All of these positions that we get stuck in are in order to keep us straight and to keep a horizontal line of sight. If you don't keep that in mind, nothing else makes sense. You're going to think it's a local muscle issue, and it's really not. However, because the only thing we do have true control over is muscles, because muscles move us into these positions, it's muscles that are going to get us out of these positions, but it's also the sensory information that our brain is taking in. It organizes all this sensory input and produces muscular output. Sometimes that sensory information gets thrown off, and we have to reestablish proper sensory integration to get the proper muscular output. So it's input, output. That's what the issue is. But that gets complicated. But the one thing that does not get complicated, well, it is complicated, but the muscle aspect. When we have a pelvis that's oriented to the right and a spine that is oriented to the right, even though the rib cage starts to come back to the left, it's still on a spine that's oriented to the right. You can rotate to the left while still being oriented to the right. So we start to twist back to the left to stay straight. We could possibly have a neck, a cervical spine that is oriented to the right. And now because you're in right stance, here's right stance, this neck starts to side bend to the left and rotate to the left to stay straight. Otherwise, you're going to be walking like this. Not a good state of affairs. Now, that could happen, and then you could see compensatory movements in the cranium of the temporal bones and the sphenoid primarily, in order, again, to shift to keep things straight. These are all compensatory mechanisms. You'll see feet that no longer pronate and supinate. One on the right side is usually a little more supinated. The left is usually a bit more pronated. They're not really, they're being forced into that position. So, people are always asking, what exercises can fix this? I have 4 listed on my website. If you go to pritrainer.com, there are 4 exercises that I have. They're techniques. I want to stress that they are techniques because this is working at the level of the brain and where your brain is integrating sensory stimuli, sensory information, and mixing it with motor skills. In the cortex, it's high-level processing. It's using what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're sensing going on the inside of your body. All those mechanoreceptors, all those important receptors, sensory receptors that give our brain sense of pressure and heat and tactile touch. All these things are what our brain responds to. That's what you got to understand. It's not just muscle. We use all that information and also what we feel inside, what we feel going on, how you sense your body on the inside. That is a huge deal that people do not pay attention to. All of that is going into these techniques. Now, because we are all rightward oriented, there is no human that probably does not need more left hamstring. Pelvis goes forward on the left, back on the right. We need that left hamstring to help stabilize, to pull the pelvis back so the pelvis can be straight. And the hamstring is what's going to help do that. Biomechanically during walking, that's what happens. The hamstring is what's going to pull that pelvis back into a more neutral position and then orient the pelvis to the left. So, is there a left hamstring technique on my website? Yes, it's in the, remember, PRI trainer, left AIC BC program or beginner program. It's on there. So the first thing is a left hamstring. It's there. The second thing, left adductor. Why? The left adductor is in the frontal plane. It's going to pull us to the left. It's going to establish better relationship. I have this paper clip where my leg, well, it's really small. The left adductor is going to bring that externally rotated left leg in and help internally rotate it, but more of the adduction aspect. So we're getting a better position of the left pelvis on top of the left femur. In PRI, we call that left AFIR, acetabulum on femur, internal rotation. They're internally rotating on each other to help position us to the left and then stabilize us on the left. There is also right glute. Why? Because the right glute rotates us transversely. It pushes us off our right foot and to the left. That right glute power, it is abduction. So you lose strength on the right side in abduction and external rotation. And as you push down into the ground with your body weight, and you start to try to push to the left, that is effectively abduction and external rotation, and then the leg has to externally rotate through the air. People who are not externally rotating, you see their legs like flipping out to the side as they run. It's really like whips. All right, so that right glute is hugely important to push us to the left. And then the last one is you're on your hands and knees. It's all fours. You're filling up your left posterior rib cage with air. Why? Because you cannot get fully left unless that rib cage on the left side can get pushed back. Because when you're in the left AIC, right BC pattern, on the left side, those ribs are forward and being closed down. In that position, it will rotate your pelvis back to the right. You can't just look at the pelvis. There's a huge upper body influence that could go all the way up to the neck, although I'm not dealing with that at this point. These left posterior ribs, we call it the posterior mediastinum, need to be expanded through rounded back. There's different ways to do it, but the easiest way is to round your back while you breathe on your hands and knees and try to force air upon inhalation into that posterior rib cage. So that is why I have those 4 techniques on the website. They are the only ones I put up there. They are not easy to do. If you think they're easy, you're probably doing them wrong because they should not be easy. I was working with a former professional basketball player, a women's player in the UK, and she was shocked at how difficult these exercises were and how she was sweating and shaking as she was doing them. So if you're powering through them, you're doing them wrong. I don't mean to insult anyone's intelligence, but they are not exercises in the way that you think of them. These are to actually switch you out of tension. To create tension to do these exercises is pointless. So all these exercises are on there because every single human being, I am confident in saying, I usually don't make absolutes about anything, and I'm the last person to try to insist that there is complete absolutes in the world. But let's just say 99% of humans need these exercises in their life, or will need them at some point. Why? Because all of us are right dominant. Whether you're lefty or right, it doesn't matter. I have plenty of videos that explain the situation. If you're doubting it, you can just look at more of my videos to explain why. When you are right dominant, that left side is simply not going to be functioning as easily as the right side. And this is what we find in PRI. This is what I find over the past 7 years working with, I don't know how many people, hundreds of people. It's always the same thing. It's always the same patterns. Left side is weak, right side is overactive. So if you can accept my explanation of a lateral pelvic tilt, and again, it doesn't matter which side is higher, the underlying pattern is this, which is on a right-oriented body, which is in right stance of gait. If you accept that you are stuck in right stance phase of gait, then you realize you have to establish left stance phase of gait so that your pelvis can just go back and forth. Right now, you're stuck, and the right side should be higher. That's the norm, because the pelvis should be higher on the right in right stance. And you also have a rib cage on the right that's lower in in right stance. So that's normal. But you have to integrate left stance into your life, and all those muscles are muscles that will help you do that. These exercises and these techniques are not there. It was not my initial belief that you would get them right on your own. It was really to make sure that people understood what this issue is, and that there is something called postural restoration, which deals with this very, very effectively. It was to seek help, because again, these techniques are not easy. There could also be influences going on with feet that you're unaware of, teeth, vision, neck issues that you could be unaware of that are holding you into this position. So it's a lot more than just a pelvis or a QL issue. It is a total body issue, and you have to see it that way. It is a sensory issue. It is what your brain is sensing or not sensing. It is what your brain is making use of. For me, I wasn't using my left eye. Of course, I didn't know. If I close my right eye, I can see. But when two eyes are open, my brain decided, you know what, I'm not going to use that left eye. I'm only going to use the right eye. Do you think I was processing things? That picture of me that I posted in others, where I'm all twisted, that was a body that didn't know where right or left was. My brain was confused because it was creating a situation that it was only using one eye. So that's why I have those 4 techniques. Those 4 techniques, you want to do them all. It's not just one thing. All these muscles have to work at the same time to shift you to the left and to establish left side stability. Again, this was not designed for you to be able to do it on your own necessarily. I want you to seek help if you have it, because again, it's not easy. It took me many years to figure this out. So that's that, and good luck. If you're struggling with a lateral pelvic tilt, as I mentioned in the video, your best bet is to check the Postural Restoration website, where there is a Find a Provider page, and seek someone, a certified provider in your area. If that is not possible, I do offer online Skype consultations. A lot of people I can help, a lot of people I can't help, simply because the complexity of their issues requires them to see somebody in person. Other people don't have such complex issues. But I'm always very honest about whether I can help someone or not, because I will tell someone if I don't think I can help them. But if you thought this video was helpful, I would like you to like the video, share it. You could comment, you could subscribe. All that helps. Thanks.